For the past few years, every time a superhero film kinda underperforms, we kinda tend to see the same headlines about superhero fatigue and how maybe the general audience is just finally tired of superheroes. Now, I personally think a lot of that tends to be a bit of an overreaction. Like, I've never really bought into it as a concept. I think people are just tired of mediocre superhero stories. I also think a part of it is just folks being rightfully kind of more selective when it comes to what they spend their money on right now. But whether you agree with that sentiment or not, there's one place where I don't think that argument holds up at all. Because while live action has kinda spent the last few years trying to figure out what it is audiences actually want to see, superhero animation has quietly been putting together one of the greatest runs the genre's ever seen, rivaling maybe even that era from the early 2000s we all kinda grew up with. And the craziest part of it all is, I'm not even sure we've seen the best it has to offer just yet. If you've been enjoying this and my other content, maybe consider liking and subscribing. It's truly the best way to help this channel grow and reach more people. Anyways, back to your regular scheduled programming. I think the biggest reason why superhero animation's kinda thriving right now is actually pretty simple. Comic books and animation have always kinda just spoken the same language. I mean, they're both visual storytelling mediums. Creators working in both don't have to worry about what they physically can build on a movie set or whether the CGI budget can stretch for another 20 minutes. The only real limitation is an artist's imagination and skill. Oh, also money. But I mean, like, for the most part, if they can draw it, it can more or less exist. And that's why animation is the perfect medium for adapting these stories though. I mean, we've kind of seen it demonstrated for a while now. Maybe I'm a little biased because, like I said earlier, I grew up during what I think is still the greatest era for superhero animation on television. I mean, just the diversity of everything coming out, Teen Titans, Justice League, Spectacular Spider-Man, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, Batman Beyond, X-Men Evolution, Young Justice. I could literally name shows for days. But just looking at all those shows, none of them felt the same in the slightest. And watching what's happening right now honestly reminds me a lot of that. Out of all the superhero cartoons airing right now, the one that finally pushed me to make this video was the second season of X-Men 97 airing. And besides the fact that the show's just freaking amazing, I think what pushed me to make this video most is primarily because it's clear that the people making this show understand the X-Men. Like, it honestly could have been so easy for this show to just be a nostalgic cash grab, solely focused on that 90s era of the team. But watching it, it's clear that this show just has such a deep love for everything X-Men, picking and choosing various aspects, storylines, and characters from 60 plus years of history. The show's not married to adapting only the Claremont and Lee run from the 90s. Honestly, it feels like the creators just dumped decades worth of X-Men comics onto a table and asked themselves, how do we glue this all together to make it work? For me personally, I feel like the X-Men are at their best when they're kind of a soap opera. Like, obviously the focus on the mutant allegory, but also the heavy focus on the various character dynamics, relationships, and all the drama that comes from them being mutants. These characters aren't perfect. They have messy relationships, can be selfish at times, and make really human mistakes, but that's ironically what makes them human. With a team as big as the X-Men, it's sometimes just hard to give all the characters importance. I mean, when I was like 5, I literally thought Wolverine's name was X-Men because of how much they showed him in those movies. But this show does a really great job at trying to give close to all the characters their time to shine. Whether it's something story related, or just some hype moments. Plus, it was literally the catalyst for this Cyclops renaissance we're currently in. I'm so happy people are finally realizing that he's not just the Boy Scout leader of the team. And what can I say about the animation that hasn't been said already, bro? I tend to prefer 2D animation over 3D when it comes to shows, but this show genuinely has some of the best animation shots I've ever seen in like anything. Even right now, only a handful of episodes into season 2, they're already setting up a bunch of stuff that has me ridiculously excited for where the season's about to go. Like, if it seriously keeps up this trajectory, it's probably gonna be one of the best superhero adaptations like ever. And that's because X-Men 97 isn't afraid to be an X-Men show. It's unapologetically embracing everything that makes the X-Men unique. If X-Men 97 feels like a love letter to decades of comics, then My Adventures with Superman feels like somebody asked, what if Superman was a shonen anime? Or honestly, maybe a magical girl one. My Adventures proves you can radically change a hero's presentation without changing who they are down at their core. Despite wearing those anime inspirations on its sleeve, it never stops feeling like a Superman show, because at the end of the day, it keeps what makes Superman him at the center of everything. Clark's kindness, his relationship with Lois and Jimmy and Kara, his struggle with his identity, hope, everything you'd expect from a Superman show, it's still there, it's just kinda shown a little differently. After just how damn good that second season was, I honestly thought season 3 had a pretty tough job. But so far, I think it's doing a pretty good job at keeping up that consistency. They're clearly kinda doing some pseudo-adaptation of the Reign of Superman storyline, except mixing it with the freaking Cell Saga from Dragon Ball. I'm deadass not even exaggerating. John Kent deadass comes back in time from the future to stop a cyborg apocalypse on some Future Trunks shit, bro. And as a diehard Dragon Ball and Future Trunks fan, that decision speaks to me on a certain level. Just like X-Men 97, this show isn't successful because it ignored Superman's history. It's successful because it found a fresh way to showcase it to us. Something I've sorta noticed is that a lot of these newer superhero animated shows, besides the ones that are like directly targeting babies, tend to skew a lot older. Like My Adventures literally airs on Adult Swim at like 12 at night, and X-Men 97, despite being on Disney Plus, is very much a show specifically made for adults. In a way, the shows we're getting are kind of maturing with us as we age. And I think probably the most clear example of this. I literally just made a video talking about this show, so I'll try to keep it kind of brief. But the thing that at least keeps me coming back to this show isn't really the brutal fights, but instead how much it invests in its characters. By the time we got to the Viltrumite War, the real conflict isn't whether Mark can win a fight, it's whether he can carry the emotional weight of everything that's happening to him. But that kind of character work is the main reason why this show feels like it's constantly evolving instead of just escalating its stakes. It also helps that in a lot of ways, the show isn't afraid to improve on things from the source material that are kinda outdated compared to when it was written in the early 2000s. Characters like Debbie just have so much more agency, and a lot of relationships just have more room to breed, and since it's an adaptation with so much time in between, it can really smooth out a lot of those rougher edges of the comics while keeping what made the story special in the first place. It proves that superhero animation doesn't have to choose between spectacle and substance. It can deliver some of the biggest, goriest action scenes on television, while still being at its core, a story about trauma, family, responsibility, and growing up. And that's really the exact kind of ambition that's defining this new era of superhero television. But I mean, all of this kind of just begs the question, why? Like, why are these shows working so well? I mean, don't get me wrong, they each have their flaws. Some of the designs in My Adventures, especially the villains, are just kinda bad. Folks have been talking about the animation in Invincible for years now. And literally do not get me started with that depiction of Sunspot, man. But even with those flaws, they're all still pretty great. And all of them couldn't be more different tonally or visually. One's a coming-of-age sci-fi epic, another's an optimistic romance disguised as an anime, and the other's a continuation of a beloved superhero cartoon from 30 years ago. I said it earlier, but even with some of the changes present in each of these, they all still have the essence of the comics they're adapting. Because they've matured with their audiences, they trust us to understand strange or mature themes and ideas. None of these shows are great because they reinvented anything. They became great because they remembered why people fell in love with those characters in the first place. What's honestly more exciting for me is thinking about what this could all mean for the future of superhero animation. For a long time after that original golden age in the 2000s and early 10s, superhero animation was kind of stuck in what I call the synergy era. The goal wasn't necessarily to tell the best story, it was just to have as much synergy as physically possible, whether that was with the MCU or the New 52. The goal was kinda just to make what was in animation resemble what was popular, instead of just being what the creator wanted to make. If a character had a new costume in live action, odds were the cartoon version would get that suit pretty soon too. But after finally getting past that strange footnote of time, it feels like studios aren't treating animation as the kids' table anymore. They're instead treating it as the place to tell superhero stories that can't be told anywhere else. Like, of course I already mentioned those 3 shows, but we're also getting stuff like Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Creature Commandos, movies like Batman Nightfall, obviously Spider-Verse. We're legitimately getting an animated Absolute Batman series, and I'm sure some of you are probably wondering how that's any different than any of the other 50 Batman shows we've gotten already. Well, the biggest difference with that is that this is literally a currently running comic book that comes out monthly. It looks to be getting a 1-to-1 animated adaptation, similar to what manga adaptations have through anime. Like the other Absolute books, Bruce Wayne is missing a lot of elements associated with him, and yet, even with everything gone, the series still keeps the core aspects of the character. The only difference is that instead of protecting Gotham from the top down as one of its richest citizens, he's protecting it from the ground up as someone who actually grew up living the same struggles as everybody else. That's why when this animated series was announced to be in the works, my first thoughts wasn't cool, another Batman show. It was, this is the exact kind of comic that deserves to be adapted right now. And I mean, if that specific show is successful, imagine what other comic adaptations we could get 1-to-1. Do you know the kind of things I would do for a Wally West Flash animated show? Very bad things. The same could be said for a comic like Dennis Camp's Ultimates, or the Absolute Wonder Woman getting animated. Actually, hold on. Why the hell haven't we ever gotten a Wonder Woman animated show? Like, ever. I mean, the lady's literally been around since the 1940s, and has such little media to her name outside of comics, it's kind of appalling. Especially when you compare the crumbs that she gets to her other members of the Trinity. I know that James Gunn said that he's trying to work on an animated Wonder Woman series, but he also said that in 2023, before the Absolute Universe even existed, and we haven't heard a peep about it since. Mind you, even Superman's fucking dog's getting a new animated show. So how the hell is it so hard to give the biggest female superhero of all time literally any type of media outside of just comics? Sorry for that small tangent real quick. But seriously, if this is really the direction that superhero animation's heading, then I really don't think this is just going to be another fad that happens. I genuinely think we could be entering a second golden age of superhero animated adaptations. And not because these shows are trying to recreate what came before them, but because they're proving that superhero animation has finally grown beyond just supporting movies or being toy advertisements. At least to me, it becomes clearer every day that animation is by far the best medium for these stories to be adapted. But don't just take my word for it. The proof's literally just a click away. Thanks for watching.